All right, so if you haven't been here, where have you been?
Yeah.
We've been doing our abundance program that we do every single January, as of the last few years anyway. We move it around every once in a while. I come together with a team of people in October and revision, and we come up with a theme. And this, I thought we had the other one. Sorry. The one right before this was the theme, moving with the rhythm of life. And so we have this music analogy moving through the whole thing. For the sake of continuity, I'm going to back up just a little bit. If you've been here every week, just refresh your memory. What I started out with us is the first note. When I learned how to play the piano when I was 8 years old, I was all excited about my first lesson. And what I said was, I walk in and the teacher says, here's basically your first lesson. There's middle C. And it looks like that. And on the staff.
There it is.
There it is, right there. And of course, you have to learn all the other notes that are on the staff as well. You got to learn the treble clef, you got to learn the bass clef, you got to learn maybe just a 5-finger scale. It's kind of boring, your first lesson. It's just middle C, but you got to start with the foundation. And so our parallel for that, for us here, was that middle C, the equivalent of our spiritual abundance, is understanding what our source is. It's not the stuff that we can see. The one source is that thing that we call God, or the invisible, or the infinite mind, or whatever the heck you want to call it. Everything that we see starts with it. Okay? So we just have to shift our awareness. So the statement was, God is the one and only source. Shifting everything that we can shift, starting with our thoughts, our beliefs, our acceptance of this truth, our gratitude of the truth. Everything that we see, us and everything, originated with the one. Then the second week was, all right, so now I've learned a 5-finger scale. Next time I start to learn a 7-finger scale, and then pretty soon both hands together, I'll move the scale down. And those are the practices that you must start with. So still, the kid isn't playing a whole lot of songs yet. You're still kind of learning the basics. We have to begin practicing to learn our rhythm. We have to learn, how to get our fingers to move. There's a metronome that I used to hate. It makes you stay with that beat. I don't hate it anymore, but I did back then. And so we begin to practice. And putting the practices in gear spiritually, after we know God is our one and only source, we start to practice with giving and receiving. We must be able to receive fuller than we ever have. And as we receive fuller than we ever have, we also begin to give bigger than we ever had. We want to get beyond the fear of I don't have enough to God is my source and there's always plenty. But it has to start with thinking some new thoughts. Then we move it to actually believing. That's one of the biggest practices, is the giving and the receiving and the flow thereof. It's the law of circulation. I also reminded us that doing affirmations is such a powerful tool at the beginning especially. It's still a powerful tool. I use them all the time for myself. But when you're trying to teach yourself something new, you got to remind yourself over and over. That's what affirmations are for. They're just to help, oh yeah, God is my source, God is my source, God is my source, all day long, or whatever it is that you are working toward. And we had a reminder that we don't do affirmations to make them true. We do affirmations because it is already true and we are aligning ourselves with the truth. So affirmations aren't going to make something happen. Affirmations are going to line us up with what's already true of the spiritual universe. That was a great shift that I shared with us last week. I also shared with us 4 principles, and we have those still up here. The first one is the infinite one God is the one and only source. The second one is this one God can only do for us what it can do through us. This is a big one to get. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time to really contemplate. God's not doing something to you. It's doing it through you. So you, us, we get to practice making ourselves a wider avenue for that good to come through us. The third one, we engage this flow via our thoughts, our beliefs, our feelings, our acceptance, and our gratitude. Acceptance is huge. We're going to say more about it later. Fourth one, the flow gets easier with practice. The flow gets easier with practice. You have to each practice it for yourself. Nobody can do it for you, and I'm really sorry about that. I wish I could, I wish I could just say, take everything that I've learned in Eric Butterworth and Ernest Holmes and all the spiritual teachers on the planet and just say, download, here you go. The truth is, this philosophy requires us to be accountable for our own learning. Just like nobody could tell me how to play the piano and just sit down and play some virtuoso piece. Still can't do that, but I can do all right. I had to learn it myself. And so you get to practice. I've proven these principles for myself. Your turn. Or not. The truth is, no matter what I say, you're free to do with it what you want. It's not about, I have to get you to get something. I would like you to, so that you can live really free lives. And that's where we're moving to today. So we're moving, let me also remind you this. The book that I'm using as my personal reminder, my personal inspiration is Eric Butterworth, Spiritual Economics. If you feel so inclined to pick up a book to help you, this is a great, great book, in my opinion. And of course, our abundance program is only 4 weeks. There's a lot more in here than I can give you in 4 weeks. I just have grabbed out the gems that work for what we're doing with our theme. There's so much in here, bless you, that I highly recommend it as a book for us. So what we want to do now, today, is we want to move from the idea of beginning to practice to now we're living it. We're in the groove, we're in the flow. If you're on the piano, now we can play some songs. We can be like Lindsay. Just go for it, right? So she no longer has to struggle over every note on the piano. She can just sit down and play it. New song? Well, maybe one time through, she's got it, right? But before this came lots of hours of practice, I'm assuming. Yes. Right? So she's at the place now where she can just live the music. She can just sit down and play that. In our spiritual work, we want to get to the place where we're not having to effort as much, where we're not thinking about it as much, but we begin to live with the law of circulation as our natural, organic state of being. That's what it means to me to be living with the music, living with that flow, to be in that. Do you remember I told you last week a story about a ceramic teacher? Who was not here last week who got to hear that story of the ceramic teacher? All right, enough of you that I'm going to read it again. All right? It was a really good story. Everybody needs to hear this story. It's talking about practicing and the value thereof. The ceramics teacher announced on opening day that he was dividing the class into 2 groups. All those on the left side of the studio, he said, would be graded solely on the quantity of work they produced. All those on the right, solely on its quality. His procedure was simple. On the final day of class, he would bring in his bathroom scales and weigh the work of the quantity group. 50 pounds of pots rated an A, 40 pounds of B, and so on. Those being graded on quality, however, only needed to produce 1 pot to get an A perfect one. Grading day came and a curious fact emerged. The works of highest quality were all produced by the group being graded for quantity. It seems that while the quantity group was busily churning out piles of work and learning from their mistakes. I like hearing the